Hello YouTube, welcome back to a long overdue Black Powder update. I hope you've been enjoying my rather bizarre fella videos, including a huge bunch of my mountain videos. I have actually got one or two more to do. One I had to scrap because although I didn't notice it at the time, one of the boxes that I've got a building in basically blatantly showed off my my home address. So I thought, the world being the dodgy place it is these days, I thought I'd better not do that. So I'm going to have to re-record that episode. And to tell the truth, I thought it was a little bit shoddy. So to tell the truth, I'd rather refilm it and add the stuff that would have been in the 6th video. I'll add to this 5th video. Basically a whole bunch of stuff that I basically forgot to show. And I'll just make it that sort of the 5th part all in one. Although I might not do that straight away because I've kind of, I think I mentioned it in one of my earlier videos, as I was going through my mountain, I was actually doing the double job of reorganising it all, and I'm much happier with the way it's set up now. But unfortunately all the stuff that was in the last video is right at the very bottom and right in the very furthest darkest corner of the mountain, because it was basically the least likely thing to ever get painted in the just sort of nearest future. So anyway, back to the Black Powder update. I actually finished this 1st battalion last week, early last week actually, but I was held up by, I decided to, after watching Leon's video on his basing techniques, I decided to take the plunge and try out a pack of Luke's apps, sort of ready base flock, and I ended up getting Rugged Field, which looks like this. Luke's apps Rugged Field. Now this took like 8 days to come. That's basically what's held me up. Although I did use the time quite efficiently because I've actually completed 2, 4, 6, 8. Completed 10, and I'm in the process of completing another 12 for my 2nd Hanoverian battalion. So fingers crossed, you may well be getting another Black Powder update in probably maybe next weekend or possibly early into the week, depending on when I actually finish them. So there's a double whammy for you straight away. So let's get going. What I'll do is I'll show you the battalion I finished, which are the Bremen Field Battalion. Let's get them out, and also while I'm sort of going through them, I'll give you my thoughts on Victrix figures, because this is the first time, apart from the artillery pack, I've actually decided to use these guys, and I've got to say I was pretty impressed. There's certainly no more bother than the multi-part Perry's guys, and I actually think that in some ways, for a multi-part figure, they're actually not too bad at all. I mean, the ones that have got the sort of double separate arms, have got, like, most of them have got like pins that fit into either the back of the hand or the back of the cuff. So they're really easy to put on, and like I said, the way that I paint them is basically the way that I painted my my original Perry's, which was to like, here's one from my next battalion that's basically ready to go. It's completely been, all its base colours are on. It's now at a point where I'm ready to choose its pose. It's basically, so I paint the body up, I then choose the pose that I want for each figure. and I cut those arms off, and then I paint paint those up. And then I generally have pre-painted all the backpacks black. And this particular time round, I did literally, I think I did like 2 whole sprues worth of heads, and they're almost like, they're probably about 70 or 80% done. So say 70% done. So all I have to do is literally just, stick the arms on, stick the heads on in the position that I want, because I always stick the arms on first and then decide if I want the head in a certain position. Set the backpacks on, and then I'll finish the heads, and then I'll give them their wash, and then do the highlights and do their eyes, and they're done. So in respects to them being particularly difficult to put together, I totally disagree. I actually found them no bother whatsoever. I suppose you could say that the only bother is that some of the bodies are only supposed to fit certain arms, and admittedly it does help if you have the instructions. Like, let me just show you the instructions here. I'm pretty sure I've shown you these already, but basically, I mean, I didn't use any of the sergeant's bodies for starters. I didn't use it. I did use one officer, but I didn't use any of these instructions. I just, obviously, basically officers just use the O numbers. It's really easy. But here's your basically your 6 types of troops. Is it 6? Yeah, and there's obviously the drummer. So you got your 6 types of troops. You got these 2 up here, B1 and B2. Now they're only supposed to fit these particular arms, or this just one set of arms actually. But I've used these arms on that body, and I've used these arms on this body without any problem. And these are actually the shooting arms. And then obviously these arms can take any arms. I tend to use this body for the shouldered arm. And then finally this kneeling one, which is only supposed to take an A7 and an A8. Which generally I tend to use because it's kind of it's quite a cool position for a kneeling trooper. It's basically if you want to create a firing rank, the kneeling ones are basically getting their rifles ready to reload, while the ones that are holding their rifles ready to fire are actually ready to pull the trigger. So with that, let's get a little bit closer detail in on these boys, because the sun is kind of ruining the picture at the moment. So let's get the first stand out. So like I say, these guys are the Bremen Field Battalion, and they've got blue trousers and they're light infantry. And this is the first stand of all 4 Victrix figures, and you can see that they really are pretty good. And the faces are pretty cool as well. It's really strange, these faces, because when you look at them on the sprue, they look ugly as sin. They've got really deep cut recesses in their faces, and they almost look like they're gurning. But once you put paint on them, they just come to life, and the actual the sort of like the highlighted raised areas, you can basically just slap the highlighting on so simply. It almost kind of tells you where to put it. So here's the second stand, and here we have one of those the firing lines set up that I was telling you about. I also did some of the yellow backpacks on these guys as well, which I thought came out really cool. So you can see got one with the shouldered arm there, one about to start reloading. That's the second stand. And the third stand, we got another sort of firing line type setup, with this guy just deciding to pop off a shot over his mate's shoulder. I'm sure he's not going to appreciate that with the amount of hearing loss he's going to take from that shot. But we've got some sort of advancing in various ways. I suppose one of my little criticisms is that you only get 2 uncovered Shakos per sort of set of heads. It's not the end of the world, and the heads that are uncovered are actually pretty cool looking. But I think these guys came out really cool. You can't beat old Prussian blue for the old trousers. I actually used a slightly lighter shade of blue for the facings and the collars. I think I used an old Citadel colour actually. Oh, what's it called? One of my old surviving Citadel paints. McCrag blue. That's what I used for the cuffs. So that's the 3. There goes. Here's the bit that's slightly a little bit unrealistic in the fact that they should really have a bugler, but I decided to put a drummer in instead. Mainly because A, I didn't have a bugler, and B, I couldn't be bothered to buy one. And I was looking around on the internet and found many people's versions of these guys that had drummers in, and to tell you the truth, I'm quite happy with the drummer in. In the future, perhaps, if I get hold of a spare bugler, I might slap one in. But for now, I'm quite happy to use a drum. I've given him sort of a unique drum colour. We've got like a kneeling guy there, a couple of guys with shouldered arms in the background. This is, I think it's front rank, this particular drummer. Yeah, I'm pretty chuffed with the front rank guys actually. I decided to use front rank for, I was originally going to use front rank for all this command team, but because the Perry's command group came with a sergeant with a rifle, I decided to do a late swap around and put the sergeant in with the rifle into these boys, and swap out the front rank sergeant who's got a musket for the Verdun, which are more of a regular field battalion and not light. So that's this drummer's stand, and now here actually talking about the sergeant. Here's the sergeant in question. So this guy is a Parry's from the Hanoverian command group, and he comes armed with a rifle, which is kind of cool, especially if you're doing a light battalion. So quite a cool figure. I was a little worried that the Perry's guys are a little bit short and thinner than the Victrix guys, but he actually fits in really well. You can see that we've got some sort of guys in various parts of charging. That sergeant's given some orders. Probably keep in line and don't charge, but these guys are obviously going for it anyway. And then a grumpy looking guy in the background with his rifle shouldered. So that is the sergeant's stand, and finally the command stand. I decided, like I say, my original 2 battalions, the Griffhorn and the PNA, started off using walled flags, and I used both flags, so the colours and the unit colours, and I decided to continue that tradition and still use both flags. So as we all know, there's always controversy about Hanoverian flags, but I like the 2 flag system, and I didn't particularly want to waste a flag bearer, because I really do like my command colour parties, and a colour party is not a colour party unless there's 2 flag bearers, so 2 flags. But as you can see, these are obviously front rank, really nice figures, great Hanoverian officers. Got the colonel there with his long boots, and decided to add an extra pauldron to make him a colonel. And then one of the flag bearers in the background, and the second flag, the main colour party, King's Colours flag bearer there, and then finally in the background the lieutenant. And of course these guys are in the standard colours and not wearing the blue trousers. yeah, really chuffed with the front rank actually. So there we go. That's the Bremen Field Battalion and Victrix figures. I'm really happy with them. I don't think there was any real easy way of doing these guys without either having you know, perhaps having like a whole box full of, oops, trying to move the camera in, there we go. I'll try and zoom in a little bit just because the sun's so bright. There we go, just something to keep in view while I waffle on a little bit. Like I was saying, obviously for light infantry, you're talking about the wings, and definitely the Victrix Flank Company's box set is an absolutely great way of doing light infantry units, because if you think about it, in a box of Perrys you only get I think you get enough for like just under 2 battalions. I can't exactly remember, but I definitely remember having to add some of my old Warlord guys with wings, probably maybe three or four. I think maybe possibly 3, because I managed to use my sapper. Now, obviously in the Hanoverian command pack, they came with a sapper, and I know that Hanoverian units don't have sapper units within their sort of battalions. So I decided to save this guy. Here's the actual figure here. I've decided to save this guy, and I'll add him to one of my King's German Legion battalions that will probably end up doing next. But more on that towards the end of the video for sort of future plans. In fact, actually, I might even leave that to my next battalion. So I'm going to end it here. 17 minutes. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm very happy with these guys. I did them really quick, actually. I did them in about 6 days. And I did them in a similar sort of style as I'm doing them now. I did sort of a group of, I think I did a group of 10. Then I did the command group, which was 6, plus another 4 figures, so 10 and 10. And then I've just finished them off with a 4. And this time round, so on my battalion I'm working on at the moment, the Verdun, I've done 2, 4, 6, I've done a 10, and then now I'm doing an 11. Is that right? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. Yeah, and then I'll be left with 3 to do. And I'm well over half. I'm probably 60% into these boys. They've all, basically all the bodies have been base coated. I'm doing the arms at the moment on the 5 guys that are Victrix. And as soon as I have done their arms, then I'll stick their arms on, stick the heads on, stick the backpacks on, and then I'll start doing the washing, and then I'll detail the faces, and then I'll start doing the highlights, and then they'll be done. And obviously I'll base them up and stuff. I've actually got them all loose at the moment, and what I do is I base them up when I've actually finished them. And I do that because of setting stands up correct so that they sit flush and don't stick bayonets into the backs of other figures and stuff, because I do like my units to be all nice and uniform and be able to sit in formation cleanly. So yes, I hope you enjoy this video. If you've got a box of Victrix sitting in your mountain, dig them out, because they really are worth giving a go. I suggest using exactly the same method as I said. Do the bodies, do the arms, do the heads, do the backpacks. Done. Very little bother. Obviously, it's not as easy as doing a French trooper in long coat from like Warlord or Perry, but I think they're really great looking figures, and they're worth the little bit of effort that you have to put into putting them together. And to tell the truth, it's not that much more effort. But like I say, Perry's multi-part British guy. It takes no longer to do than one of these guys, and in some cases the arms are actually easier to put on than the Parry's guys. So yes, so until the next video, which will hopefully be like I say, towards the end of the week, possibly at the latest, and going into next week, I'll be back then. I've been watching all your videos, enjoying all your stuff, commenting when I can. So until then, catch you all later. Bye.